Yeah.
Howdy.
As always, we are starting a new stream, and this time I'm joined by Kevin. So thank you very much for joining. And
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How's things over there?
Good. Yeah, things are good. It's 73 degrees here today, so pretty happy about that.
Yeah, it's very different.
How about you?
But we did get some sun back again, so we're past the like 4 or 5 months where you only see like gray. So that's good.
That's good news. Yeah. Excellent.
And I used that time to walk outside and do my civic duty of voting in the Dutch local elections. So,
excellent. Very important.
Cross off. Yeah. Otherwise, you can vote up to 9 in the evening, but then I'd have to run out the door here. Just to check that out earlier in the day.
Nice.
No. So I thought I'd just take you all through a couple of things new in the past week, and then from there we can bring our special guest on for today. So we just have a few new things this week. So we didn't do a large release, but we did do a bit of patch releases here and there. So this one is out for Open Rewrite, and notice that this is a 8.75.8 release. That means we've done a couple of them over the past couple of days. So if you were waiting for a particular release, it's probably already in there. But we also folded this into a new release of the Maven plugin. And this one in particular is of interest for folks that are maybe running the recipes on projects using Groovy and dependencies. Those will now see a big boost from this new release of the Maven plugin. So if that is you had some problems previously, then I think we tagged this in most of the issues that had a link to this. But note that you're now better supported to be able to move you off of different logging libraries and things like that. You really need a different dependency on the class path as well. So that is out. We also did a couple small releases for the, or one small release with a couple of fixes for the rewrite migrate Java. This in particular had some fixes for the switching from an if-else towards a switch, as well as some smaller fixes on the EE9 and EE10 recipes as well. So if any of those had been bugging you, know that there is a patch version available for you all to take full advantage of the fixes there. Then beyond that, we have a couple things. One of them is that we next week on Tuesday will do another advanced Open Rewrite training. This one will be in, I think, my afternoon, judging by the time it's here. So this will be 7 in the morning for the folks in the US, or comfortably in the afternoon for folks in the EU. And then hope to see you all there to teach you about more the advanced Open Rewrite training. So going beyond the basics towards data tables, visualizations, those type of topics. Then also coming up is that we of course have our conference up in May. But the early bird tickets, those are going to see a price hike starting April 3rd. So if you want to get your tickets early, then now's the time. Go to the coderemix.ai. You'll also see the new design that we have for the webpage there. And then from there, hope to see you in May in Miami. Are you going to fly out yourself, Kevin? Or do you not yet know?
Don't know yet. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And then something to celebrate next week, we're going to have our 100th episode, which I find it at times hard to believe that we've done this for, 2 years in a row by now. But really looking forward to this one. And I'll be joined by Sam again, and we'll see who else might join us there. So.
Do you want to give us a quick preview of what the Ultimate Dev Marathon is, or is that a spoiler and we have to just hold off?
It's a slight spoiler, but
Okay.
we'll be featuring various topics that maybe in and of themselves aren't worthy doing a complete episode on. But we'll do a quick run through all of this. So
Excellent.
maybe we'll even make it to 100 items, but you never know. So then, yeah, that's all the updates for this week. And then with this, we're going to introduce our special guest for today. So I'm going to introduce you all to Stephen Cihak.
Hello. Oh, yeah. Hey, let's get that.
So our audience is applauding. Yep.
Yeah, that's so great. Thanks for.
How are you doing?
It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So, for the folks who don't know you yet, could you maybe give us a brief background on what you do and how that's brought you here?
Yeah. So my name's Stephen Cihak. I'm the Senior Director of Cloud Platform at Choice Hotels International. The brands we've got 22 brands. The brands that are probably most prevalent are Comfort Inn, Comfort Suites, Quality Inn. I've been with Choice around 10 years at this point, played a few different roles here, and have been in this role for, I think, around 5 years now, somewhere in there. And Cloud Platform here does centralize a lot of just, the infrastructure. So we manage most of our AWS infrastructure and build the golden pass for people to deploy into. So one of the things that we have is a developer experience team that really focuses on that CI/CD and all of the flow. Once the code is complete, how do we actually get it out to production? And part of that is managing our repos, driving currency, and I don't mean money. I mean like keeping things current, and just making sure that we're staying up to date. And so we've been moving toward some very strong lifecycle policies around that lately. My background is heavy in development and engineering. I've been doing it since the late 90s and played about all the roles you can play in engineering. And then about 10, 12 years ago, moved into more management role and just have kind of continued to drive that throughout the org.
That's good. And one thing that I always find interesting in orgs that have a prescribed golden path is have you been able to converge onto that path, or is there still some like 5 different companies within the one label masquerading as one, and only one of the 5 uses the things prescribed?
Yeah, so we do have one business unit that was a separate company for a while and is folded in. They still manage their own CI/CD flow. The rest of the organization have kind of converted onto our standard platform, most of which are using our golden paths. So we've been working on that full migration to like templated CI/CD flows, which we can talk about at any time you guys want. But having those template workflows really make a big difference to us, whereas previously Jenkins pipelines and everybody kind of managed their own thing, and they tweaked it. Like, even though we had these centralized things, they went out and tweaked it and changed it. And so we've been kind of moving them over the past year or so onto our template flows. And then there's a very small percentage of legacy stuff that we've lifted and shifted into the cloud when we went all in the cloud. We finished the migration in 2024, but we still have a small pattern of those. And then we have some Salesforce implementations as well, and those go through their own kind of deployment routing and management.
So and mostly onto the path that you want to have, and of course, as always, you'll have some small examples, exceptions. But
yes,
good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah, and we slowly kind of chunk away at those, but it's very, very slow. And there's more modernization of those tools and then retirement than there is actual conversion at this point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then
Yeah.
Okay. And then in terms of what that enables, have you updated those golden paths since introducing them, or how's that experience been for you all?
Yeah. So back, like, we really kind of started a cloud journey back in 2015 here at Choice, and that's when they said, "Hey, we should have a central platform team that builds all these pipelines for you and does all this kind of work." And so that was great. That was a big transformation. That did help self-service teams be able to deploy their own stuff, and you just generally see the benefits of that. Since we've moved to these template forms, I don't know, we've made 20 or 25 updates that just get consumed by the team. So instead of saying, "Hey, we need everybody to go change this," we're able to say, "We're changing this, it's backwards compatible. You don't need to do anything," and just push those out. So my team can move faster in those things, and we impact the development team significantly less when we with that. So that's one of the hugest, from a platform perspective, that's one of the main benefits, is that we separate. There's a lot more separation of concerns between the work that we do and the impact on the dev teams.
Yeah, sounds good. So less planning in years of like someday maybe we want to be here, and more of thinking over change and then seeing it fully rolled out in a couple months, maybe at most.
Yeah. And an example of that is we're moving our build processes off of Jenkins, like many companies are these days. And we're able to put in some controls and say, "Hey, if you're ready and you've updated your repos with XYZ," or use Moderne, which is the plan, we're able to understand that and kind of push those changes out for you. And so that transformation of going from Jenkins to another build process is seamless to the end user, seamless to our dev teams, so they can just continue to move forward. Now, is it perfect? Is that build process going to be perfect? I'm sure that some team out there has done something unique that we're going to have to address. But because most build processes are fairly the same, and there's only a few kind of differences, we're able to for the vast majority of repos, we're going to be able to build those fine.
That's a benefit of having people follow those golden paths that you're producing, is it's very easy to move them off of, move them onto a different golden path using Moderne or yeah.
And it saves you a lot of pleading as well. So you can just change and automate, and then give them the change rather than ask repeatedly and start spreadsheets to track things.
Exactly. The way I look at it is, we're engineers, we're not politicians. We don't do campaigns. We don't understand campaigns and how they work. And so if we can avoid doing campaigns for change, I think that's what we want to do.
So do you want to talk a little bit about how you are able to use, so instead of doing campaigns and like pushing changes to these teams, how you empower them to make these changes themselves, and what incentives you give them to make these changes?
Yeah. So, there's a couple things. One, if it's a golden path, right, we're trying to make those changes for them, and we can show benefits by, "Hey, if you go to this new pipeline, this new version, you get these benefits as well," and then we get the benefits. So there's some mutual effect there. If we're talking about things like, "Hey, we want you to keep current. We need you to update your dependencies or your libraries," or all those things. I don't like going to them and saying, "Hey, the security guys, they're coming and talking about all this stuff, and we need you to do that." I much prefer to give them something simple and easy for them to use that allows them to stay up to date and get the latest and greatest of things, and potentially speed up their applications by doing so. And so, a while ago, we started that kind of, hey, we need to move from Java 8 to Java 21. We're 3 major LTS versions behind. They're already talking about Java 24 getting released, and we're still at Java 8. And so luckily we had Moderne in place by then, and we've been using Open Rewrite for a few items and brought that in. We can talk about some of those reasons why. But we had some people on the build side that said, hey, I'd be really interested in building this recipe out for the organization. So we had the recipe built that would go from Java 8 to 11 to 17, 21, make some other custom changes. Like we had corporate POMs that we use here for the most part in our Java apps, with a number of versions of them. But we were able to build the recipes around them just to get those updated as well and drive that change. And it really allowed the teams that embraced that to go out and self-service their upgrades and do that in a very, very quick period of time. And what we saw was that the teams that did that got through that upgrade process very quickly. So we had teams that finished, tens, 100 apps in a few months. Now, your mileage may vary always, but our teams were able to kind of dedicate some time and go do that and go through all the testing involved in that without having to do a lot of code changes. There were other teams that, hey, I'm going to use this recipe, and then if there's problems, I'm going to go do manual updates. And so that did happen. And we introduced vibe coding right around the same time as this. And so some teams were like, hey, we're going to jumpstart with Moderne, and then we're going to use vibe coding to kind of finish this off. And so they still got done fairly quickly. The teams that didn't use the Open Rewrite recipes at all took the longest to get done. Even with vibe coding, even though they were embracing some of that, it still just, it took a long time to finish those pieces. And it's unfortunate, but we were able to kind of mark all the teams and say, hey, you've told us all your apps are done. It looks like all your apps are done. And we can actually call that transformation complete. And it was a really good experience. And from my standpoint, using those recipes really did enable the teams with, a small relative percentage of time dedicated for maintenance versus new build and feature development to be able to get through those major upgrades very quickly and very easily. And so, what we try and do is build those things where, hey, it's easy for you to go do this. It's easy for you to do the right thing. It's easy for you to do those upgrades. And we're seeing a much greater adoption once we enable that for them.
Yeah.
And so does your team write the recipes for those external teams, or do you have like a mix of the central team and the individual teams writing recipes?
It's a mix. So we have some people that like in the case of the Java piece, we really partnered with some of the build teams to go out and create those recipes. Like my team of engineers use Python for the most part. We have a few Java people that are really skilled on my team, but it's not our day in bread and butter. Java is not our bread and butter. But those build teams, that's 80% of their of their app suite is all in Java still, and so they're the experts there, and we leverage that expertise to make sure that they were getting like them as much as we possibly could. Let's get that done and get that in an automated way. And then we went through some small feedback cycles on that to kind of get that general recipe out, and that took the build out of that recipe, I think, if I remember correctly, took about 2 months in our process, where we had like one lead developer that was dedicated on it, and then some part-timers here and there going in and doing checking and things like that. So it was a beg, borrow, and steal kind of approach. Yeah, but it I do believe it really worked out for us and sped that development along.
Yeah, and I've heard you say both that you, your team, and then the build folks that you work with develop those recipes, but I also heard you mention self-service from the team to actually adopt those recipes. So is it then a bit of a mix of approaches, or do you prescribe and run it for them, or how would you describe that rollout?
Yeah, so we did training for each team. So we had key kind of people be evangelists for this in our organization, and then highlight this is how to do it. And then if teams had trouble or they weren't sure, we would pull in some of those key evangelists to come and be part of that training and be part of that talking and talk through that to really show those benefits. And it's not like we're not a dictatorial kind of organization around that, and so which is great in many ways. Right, a team should have autonomy to make decisions on how best to do the work that they have, and so but our goal is to kind of do that influence peddling around. Hey, we've seen this before. This is the approach we really highly recommend, and our EA team, our enterprise architecture team, really helps with that.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
And then, are there any upcoming changes that you feel like you're gonna prescribe next? Or?
Yeah, so we are moving to internal developer portal, slowly but surely. We've got, especially with the build out of agents, and we released a new kind of internal agent platform to run all our custom agentic flows on. We built that with the developer portal in mind. And so we have workflows that set everything up for that. And but it does require some metadata in the repos, the way we're setting it up. Metadata in the repos to say, hey, this is who I am. This is about me, kind of like an about me page, or README, but a little more, nuanced than that. And so we are planning on using Moderne to help us inject those metadata files across our repos. So it's going to need to inspect the repo itself. What language is this? What version are you on? Python 3.10, 3.13, whatever it is, Node, Next.js, and identify that, inject it, understand who the last committer was, so we can figure out the team that the repo belongs to, because that's always a difficult thing, and put it in the right place, and give the right permissions to that. And so that's one of the things that we're working on. We're also, like I said, we're also moving to a new CI process that does more native building instead of, like, we use Maven for a lot of things that we shouldn't. I'm sure member companies are in the same boat as Ant and Maven, lots of history there. And so, we're moving to those native build approaches for everything. And in order to do that, we need similar metadata to understand what build process should this go through. And so we can go out and generate those things and leverage it for the same purpose. And so this allows us to run those recipes, push those PRs out, work with our friends in security to say, hey, we want to just combine this into our mainline branch without having to go through a whole PR process, because it's not affecting code, it's doing this, and then we can push that out and enroll them almost automatically. And so the goal is to eventually get to that point. That's a big push for our team this year.
Yeah, sounds good.
What you're describing there sounds a little bit similar to the pre-think, the context that we can provide to agents. So not only would that enroll you in your internal developer portal, but also provide information to the AI agents that your teams are now empowered to use to get more information without having to glob and grep every file.
Yeah. And that kind of stuff is going to be important. We're having even some discussions about, like, do we need a README anymore, or can we auto generate that? And like, how important is that? Do we want to call it LLM every time? Or do we just call it LLM right at once, and then any update, it goes and does the updates for you? All that kind of stuff. I think getting rid of that cruft from a developer standpoint, and making sure documentation stays as current as the applications we're trying to get to, is important as we move forward. And so we're kind of playing around and doing some thought exercises around that.
And of course, it's the folks that benefit from it. It's not just developers; it's also like the AI agents that you're considering to introduce. That if you don't make any reference to it in any of the docs, they're gonna not know about it, and they're gonna start their first workday every morning yet again, and not know what's actually in there and how to approach it.
Yeah, it's kind of having been doing this for so long, it's kind of scary to say, hey, we're not going to have a documentation file that gives me a little bit of context about what the app is doing. But at the same time, I think we're going to get better information at the end of the day. So it's okay. It's just like, I can't imagine not having a README file in a repository. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
It's one of those pieces that I just kind of have to get over.
It's one of the last year has been crazy for our industry, like just a complete upheaval of the tools that are available to us, and like being able to ask regular human language questions to a repository. Are you finding that your internal team are adopting those tools? They're really keen to adopt those tools, and they're fitting in well with their workflow?
It's been a very interesting year. So we have a conference every year, an internal company conference, just technology conference every year. And so at that one in 2025, we did a whole session on vibe coding and kind of what it is. And that, there was a percentage of our development staff that had embraced it. There were some of us that did a hackathon or around it. We call it Makeathon, using it, and like built an app in a weekend that was replacing another app, and it actually kind of worked. It was pretty amazing. And so even our VP was part of that team. So and so we introduced it about a year ago, and teams have jumped in and started using it, and we didn't say, hey, this is the only thing you can use. So teams have gone and experimented, and Cloud Code came out and pulled that in, and we used Klein initially, and then we've got Codex and some other things, and it's teams are using a lot of different things. And so we're hitting a point now where, hey, we've got to build some economies of scale. We've got to drive some standardization around this, and my team plays a big part in that. I don't know that we're definitely not the decision maker. It's a group effort, but we will be setting some standards and coming down with a few, hey, these are the things that we want to do. We have pockets of people that have built some AI DLC, and hey, I'm going to use this LLM for analysis, and this one for initial design, and then this other, Haiku for writing the code and doing all that kind of stuff. And that's been really fun to see, and we're starting to bring those groups together, led by our senior director of enterprise architecture. He's in innovation, and he's bringing those teams together to help drive out some of that AI DLC, and how we can actually, wrap all this together and have these sub agents kind of talking to each other and validating each other, and all that fun stuff. It's fun and interesting. It's actually kind of re-sparked my love of coding again, because I don't have to learn Next.js and these JavaScript frameworks. all the
Right.
stuff that I never wanted to do in the first place.
Exactly that. It makes it easier to jump into the things that you don't know a lot about,
Yeah.
but you can kind of eyeball if they're okay.
Yep,
I mean,
exactly.
I wrote my first React component not knowing anything about React, and it only took me 10 minutes.
Yeah,
It kind of works. Yeah.
it works. It's great. And I don't have to troubleshoot when I accidentally indent a Python line by one space, and not know what the hell is going on. So,
Yeah, I can finally stop hating Python thanks to LLMs.
Exactly. So there's things like that I really, really enjoy about it, because I can, like you said, Tim, I can eyeball a code, understand what's going on. But if I were to sit there and try and write it from scratch, it'd take me forever to look up the syntax, and I'd have to be using autocomplete all over the place instead of, just being able to pump it out. So it's a really, really good direction I think we're moving toward.
Have you found, I'm curious what roadblocks or problems that your teams have run into using it, though? Because I mean, for instance, we've found that it's really good at certain things and it's getting better at everything all the time, but there's certain things where you have to really, really guide it.
Yeah. So for us, like from a code development, that the way we at platform really looks at it, that's like 20% of the job of getting code from idea to production. And so the other, 70-80% is all of the automation testing and all of the deployment and the security scans and all of that kind of stuff. And so that's where we're really trying to streamline that flow. It's interesting that the bottlenecks are changing, right? As code creation becomes a zero-sum game, like a $0 game, all of those other pieces become way, way more important and harder. And then when you think about like maintenance and upgrades and all of those things, using Open Rewrite to do that across your repositories in a deterministic way is super important. I can't, like, if I said, hey, go create these meta files using vibe coding, I know I would get hallucinations all over the place. And I know things would be wrong, and I'd just be fighting that constantly. So having a deterministic approach around that is super, super important. And so those are some of the things that we're trying to figure out is, we want to make sure we're still driving modernization. But the issues that we're seeing around vibe coding aren't so much the code itself. It's more, hey, we're getting vulnerabilities that we have to go remediate. It's harder to get through that SDLC, that full life cycle out to prod, because there's a lot of gateways I have to go through, and there's a lot of validation, and there's huge amounts of code and huge amounts of apps that are coming through. So some of the problems that we're seeing are very, very different than what we've historically seen. People coming and saying, hey, how do I create a repo? I don't remember how to create a repo because I haven't done it in 4 years. Like how do I do that? And so that's one of the reasons for the developer portal, is because we can streamline a lot of that and make that easier.
And the more things look alike, the more return on investment you get for the automations and the recipes and the enablement that you're doing over there.
Yeah, so I didn't quite answer your question, but I think it's more the problems we're seeing with it are more that the process changes that we're going to be going through around everything else outside of code development that is going to be hard. How slow is that business process coming up with the requirements? Like, can we speed that up? Can we get farther left in that cycle and provide them examples and iterations and things to play with way, way early? Like, those types of things are going to be fun to do, but we're not. Frankly, I don't know that anybody's super prepped for that.
No, I think you answered the question perfectly. I mean, it really is. Wasn't trying to get at like what do they make mistakes on, but yeah, what not just what do they make mistakes on, but like what else has changed around the process. And I think you answered that perfectly. It's like, well, all this other stuff still exists. We still have to do it. So,
Yeah.
like, how can we do it? The repo thing is hilarious because now you'll have product managers being like, well, I can create something just to prototype what I want to happen, like in less than a day. So
Let's
yeah.
go.
Great. Yep.
Yeah, how fast can you get this out? Yeah, so
Right.
we are moving in a direction where our CIO is saying on a regular basis, everyone's a builder. And we want to enable that. We want to help with that. But if everybody's a builder, it means that we're going to have more vulnerabilities. We're going to have more changes we have to make. There's going to be more maintenance, and so we have to streamline a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So there's going to be, these systems aren't building out your infrastructure. So are we deploying things in a reliable way? Are they resilient? How do they handle infinite loops, and what kind of problems do they run into, and how do we get someone who doesn't have 3-4 years of development background to understand how to troubleshoot an app that's going through some sort of anomalous issue? It's going to be some fun times.
Yeah. And from a personal perspective, the things I like best about these new technologies is that it becomes very cheap to try something new, but also if you get a bug report, it's a very clear, this doesn't work, it should work, go figure it out, and I'll do a dozen other things while it figures it out. But you do from time to time hear from different organizations that they now wrestle with other things, like folks running out of their tokens in 3 hours and then having to wait a couple of hours, or Laud is down and then you don't know how to do a git commit anymore, and things like that. Kind of things you never quite expected.
Yeah. How do I live without my LLM? Yeah. So.
It is amazing how quickly we become reliant on a tool like this. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
Oh no, I was going to say it's just like if we bring an AI robot in that does our dishes, at some point we won't know how to do that anymore. So, like my vacuuming skills are way down. So.
I had a dishwasher most of my life, and then I moved to Argentina, and there's no dishwashers here, and so I'm like, when I got to wash the dishes by hand.
Oh my gosh!
Yep.
But to kind of go back to your point in terms of reliance on that, yeah, we're seeing like the daily usage trend continuing to increase, across the organization. It's interesting that the token usage is going down because our models are getting better. We're not having to correct them as often. We're not having to go through those changes as often. I mean, the codecs are not, it's not codecs anymore, but the OpenAI GPT 5.4, the Sonnet models, the Claude models, they're getting significantly better than they have in the past, and it's great, but we're still going to need, like I said, and I keep kind of harp on this a lot, but when it comes to like scale, and when it comes to, hey, we're talking about hundreds or thousands of developers and hundreds of thousands of code bases, we need more deterministic approaches that we can ensure we're doing the right thing long term. Moving from React to Next.js, that's really complicated. And doing some of those modernization approaches and trying to stay current when change is so prevalent right now, it's really hard. And finding tools like Moderne, Open Rewrite have helped us like minimize the amount of time we're spending on that, so we can focus on these other kind of major tectonic shifts that are happening in our world.
Glad to hear that you see continued values in Big Sweep, or you already have experience with. Yeah, we only find that they can improve the quality of what you are now producing in much higher frequency, and then from there be able to stay ahead of potential issues that just otherwise are very hard to troubleshoot.
Yeah, we originally brought the tool in because of Log4j, the Log4Shell issue, and just the amount of effort that we had to go through just to figure out, wait, who's actually using that particular library was so painful. I mean, we had SBOMs, but it was just even navigating those SBOMs was super painful. And so bringing a tool that we could say, oh, here's the repos, here's the change, here's the PRs, everybody go out and deploy those, in the next 8 hours. I think that kind of stuff, that's why we brought it in. We could instantly see how we could leverage this. And it was originally for that kind of security vulnerability and how to manage that and at scale. And so if we get another Log4Shell that comes in, we can identify and push those changes out.
Did you happen by chance to come across the Jackson vulnerability the past week or so?
We just had a conversation about that. So far, so good.
So okay, it'd be interesting to hear how your experience is now, where you can identify where you are in a couple seconds, minutes maybe, and then remediate as needed.
Yeah, we'll find out what we need to do. But like I said, so far so good. So
all good. Glad to hear.
Yeah. So beyond that, though, I mean that's still kind of the driving force behind it. But then when we need to do this major Java upgrade, last time we went from 6 to 8, it took a very long time. So, and I heard it was extremely painful. And this one we went 8.21, and the majority of apps were done, during our busy season. So, it was pretty worthwhile.
You've done a couple of Java upgrades using the Moderne platform now and open rewrite recipes, right? Or has it just been the one?
It's been, well, we did. There's a couple teams that had some libraries or some external pieces that were required to use that could not go to 21, so we had to go to 17. So
gotcha.
Yeah, so we have a couple recipes, but those were outliers, I would say.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I'd be interesting to hear even the Java 21 recipes, we're still expanding them. We're still pulling in changes that are relevant to those. I think we had one last week where if you have a series of if-else ones, you can now turn it into a switch, and turn that switch into a switch expression. And I'd be interesting to hear for your colleagues who kind of vibe coded their way to Java 21, if we can run those recipes and see whether we can still make improvements to.
I imagine you could. So I definitely would not be surprised by that.
Yeah. Now, is your team using, or have you used AI tools to help you write the recipes to begin with?
That I think is the goal. So when we do this CI change, we're going to be doing that. Say, hey, here's where we need to go, because some of it is for Python, we're moving from a requirements.txt to PyProject Tunnel. It's not that big of a shift, honestly, but instead of having something go out and potentially mess that up, it'll be very easy for us to say, hey, look for these files and then go create this other file. And since you recently released the Python support, more Python support, it's not just text support or text support, that we're going to be playing around with that. And our goal is to say, hey, let's use vibe coding to write the recipe so we can do it ourselves and need less help from Kevin and Sam, and really see what we can do. and then take that and push it out against. And I do believe that we'll be able to get much better variability and be able to handle many more scenarios, because we can use that vibe coding to say, hey, look across my repos and see the ones that aren't in this format, and let's pull those scenarios out and add them to the recipe up front. So there's less back and forth in the long term.
You can even have, I mean, Tim was talking earlier about sending off something that he had written off against 1,000 repos. I mean, you can do that while you're writing the recipe, and then either, push the recipe up and make the change across all those repos, or just go ahead and, push PRs right from that moment.
Yeah. On some of these, our goal is to say, hey, this is a non-breaking change, and so we just want to push these pieces out. And then on some of them that are, hey, we want to go play with this and test with this, we're gonna be more circumspect around it at first.
Nice.
More
Also, oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I was just gonna say more team by team. Like, hey, this department, this domain, go run the recipes on your teams and see what you come back with and give us feedback.
Nice.
And then specifically on the case you mentioned of the requirements txt towards, in our case, the PyProject.toml file, we have a recipe for that. So
yeah,
we'd love to hear your feedback, and then
we'll definitely. Yeah, we're very close to. We've got a beta release out, so we're very close to getting the beta release of the build process out. So we're very close to releasing that once that's done. We'll open migration.
Yeah, glad to hear. And of course, it is going from a very declarative format to, again, a very declarative format. So it's a very natural fit. Whereas I think you had more challenges to tackle going from Jenkins, which is groovy, to something that is not as fluent, so to say, in what other allows.
Yeah, the Jenkins migration is like, that's going to take us years to get up. So there's like, it's an organic growth, and every company gets this. Like, you get a tool and that's easy for the developers to go do stuff, and they're just going to go do it. And so we have a lot of custom jobs out there that we have to look at and determine, is it still used, and is it still valid, and do we have another job that does the same thing, all of that kind of stuff.
And I think there as well, as you said, the tool that you're introducing, like the I'm not sure if it was Backstage or something similar that you're introducing.
So we use Harness here. So we're using the internal developer portal, which is Backstage behind the scenes.
But yeah, that should help as well to get a sense of what is it, who's maintaining it, who owns it, is it still deployed somewhere, and answer all those tricky questions, and then figure out where to put your efforts for maintaining, and that you're not maintaining something that was just shelved but not archived years ago.
Yeah, if you haven't looked at like those developer portals and the workflows around that, like, definitely do. Like, again, this is a game changer. You can have somebody that doesn't need you can abstract a lot using the tools and the pipelines involved in that. And so we went from a couple weeks of duration to go from I need a repo to I'm deploying to dev, and all of the steps in between, to 15 minutes or so. So
yeah.
Like, it's like that simplification, and then you start adding in all the vibe coding that's going to happen on top of it. It's a big deal.
And of course, what we've heard before with these types of platforms is that adoption had been the bottleneck. Getting folks to actually add that small metadata file or self onboard onto a platform. But you have that figured out now. So then that should help as well.
Well, we have a strategy. We haven't figured it out. We have a strategy. But I do know, just having used the tool, I know I can push those changes out and do some auto imports at that point. And that you make it easy for these teams to do these things, and they're going to do it. Make it easy to do the right thing, hard to do the wrong thing. And most of the people will not go the hard route. So you always get that one holdout that really wants to feel the pain. And
you have the types who think they won't learn anything if they automate something that can be automated, and then it's different.
And that's fine. But those people are important to have, so because they understand the nitty gritty. But the easier your platform teams or your central teams can make things for developer teams, the higher the adoption rate, the easier it is to get them to move. And sometimes we've been able to automate it to a point where we can make those changes for them, and then the impact is almost negligible.
Yeah, no, definitely helps. And then, is there anything similar that you're looking to push towards the teams once you get them used to you making changes broadly across the org?
I don't think they'll ever be used to us making changes, but ultimately we are looking to be able to provide them more and more services faster. So the more we can do without needing them to come and make a change, the faster we can go, and the faster we can help them, and the more we can be the force multiplier that platform teams really should be. So I have this audacious goal to say, hey, if you want to use something new in AWS, I should be able to get you a self-service pipeline within a week for that thing you want to use, and that should have full IEC and just the options that you need for that service. I don't know how audacious that is, but like ultimately, if we can do that, if we can partner with our build teams and be able to provide that level of service, I think we will end up driving huge amounts of innovation within the organization, as opposed to, hey, I got to go out and manually create this every time. I don't know what the right thing is. I don't know the well-architected framework. I just heard that they have this capability out there. The cloud offers this thing. I want to go use it. I want to go add it to my app. So now they're just hook or by crook trying to put it in, and there's not necessarily the thought process that needs to go into that to figure out this is how we should be adopting this, and this is the reference implementation that we should be using.
Yeah, glad to hear.
I wanted to touch on something you said earlier, Stephen. I noticed that you're referring to just coding with an LLM in general as all of it as vibe coding.
Yes.
And I'm curious if that's intentional, like if you're intentionally just referring to all of that as vibe coding. Because like for me, I separate out like coding with an LLM into vibe coding, which is I do for personal projects that I don't necessarily care how good the result is, versus just AI assisted coding, which is it's writing all the code for me, but then we're very heavily reviewing it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
From my perspective, whether it's a personal project or not, I want to make sure the code's well structured and well written. So I don't know that I've intentionally sat down and thought, oh, I should use different terminology around this. I would treat it the same way, and then it's just a degree of review that's needed based on what's going on. Like I have a lot of internal projects that, hey, we're throwing out there, but they're just for 5 people. The amount of review I'm doing on that architecture is really small. Like I'm not doing these massive reviews on that. If I have something that's going to go to prod and going to go out into the public, there's a lot more effort that goes into things like that. So it is more of a risk-based decision. But yeah, we just talk about it in terms of, we're going to leverage this tool to generate our code, regardless of what, kind of review is required around that. Having said that, one of our tenets is to do the same thing every time. So if I'm doing a scan for a PCI app, I should be doing the same type of scan for a non-PCI app. You know, like it shouldn't matter. Like I should be doing that same level of rigor. And because the tools are getting better and better and better, that amount of rigor can get less and less and less. So, I mean, you can have like LLMs or agents seem to work better when they're checking each other. Like, hey, I did this. And this other thing comes in and says, did you do it right? Let me look at these. Here's the rules that I followed. Did you follow the rules? Did you not follow the rules? And I can definitely say that I'm seeing that since that context window continues to grow and get better, I am seeing these agents following the rules a lot better than a few months ago, significantly better than a year ago, which is I would have to use expletives most of the time to get it to follow a rule. I don't need to do that anymore. I'm not constantly saying, hey, I told you not to do that. Use this other thing instead.
I've heard way too many friends of mine threaten kittens in all of their chat if they weren't following the rules.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I remember typing one time, I'm going to rip out your LLM if you do that again. So just I had hit that level of frustration.
We're all going down when the robot uprising happens, right? Like,
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely believe that you know I can physically feel that improvement and I know they're going to continue to get better. I can't imagine a year from now like what things are going to look like. It's difficult to tell.
Yeah.
But we still do the same scans. We still run the same techniques. We may not, like, it's not going to the public, so we may not do the load test and things like that. But we are putting that rigor in architecturally, regardless.
For sure. Those quality gates and making sure that, because like you said, writing the code is never it's not the hardest part.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, those are the bottlenecks that teams are going to continue to become more and more prevalent. And where you have these ineffective processes, whether they're manual or not, if they're ineffective, their lights are going to start shining on them. And so you're going to get teams that aren't used to that reacting to that. And I anecdotally have heard like that can cause tension inside of your organization, and it's something to pay attention to and be aware of and have empathy for. Like these teams didn't even know they were a bottleneck, didn't even know that their process is ineffective when you look at the whole, and they thought they were, everybody tries to do a good job, and like essentially everybody's trying to do the right thing and do a good job. Nobody intentionally is saying, hey, I'm going to make this the worst process you've ever seen in your life. So, they think it's good. And then, you start getting it starts to scale because you're getting more inputs and more stuff coming through. And all of a sudden that starts to fall apart and break down. And you need to go to those teams with thought and empathy around, hey, they're running into something that they've never seen before. So let's help them out and let's make it better.
Right. Yeah, we're on the same side here. Like we all want the best for choice hotels in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it may not feel like that at the time. You guys are slowing us down.
So then, we're coming up to the hour. Do you have any advice for folks who maybe are in a similar position or striving for a similar position like yours, but maybe have not reached that same level of like standardization? Or
start small, iterative. The agile practices always work best here. One thing to think about, and one place where we failed, especially with open rewrite, is we didn't really drive teams to say, hey, these recipes, we've used them, we've tested them. You're going to run into a scenario that we haven't seen yet. So come back, tell us, let's work on that recipe together. Let's go fix that and automate that, because you're going to run into it again. And I think, especially in the Java upgrade, if we had done a better job of that and getting that message out to the individuals, regardless of, we're speaking to the manager level or some key leaders, I don't know that we were really good about pushing that down to the individual. And so a lot of times, some of the feedback we got on a few of the teams were, yeah, it worked, but then I had to go do all this other stuff. And I had to do the same thing 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's like, well, you should have told us. Yeah. So it made us look back at our process and say, hey, we need to do more announcements and more like TED Talks around some of these things in terms of those processes. So that's a big deal. Standardizing, you've got to find a way to make it better for the developer. If you're standardizing because you just want a standard, you need to understand their flow. You need to live in their shoes, and you need to make it better. And that will allow you to drive that adoption. So for us, like, we reduced about 10 minutes off of the deployment time from when I build the code to when I get it out. And so it sounds small, but when you're doing 100,000 or 500,000 of those, that adds up pretty quick. Yep. And it can make FTE level differences when you have scale. And so being able to say, hey, this is better for this is better for that, it is important. The other thing that we didn't do that we should have was, when we went to our new template, we did a major change from the existing kind of scenarios that were out there, or the existing flows that people had tweaked and changed. And so there's a lot of fear and trepidation on those teams in terms of moving to that standard, and it really hampered our ability to get to those templates. So in retrospect, I really wish we had said, hey, let's build a template that looks really close to what the 80% is, and move those 80% and then get the other 20% on. And then let's go through and make these bigger changes as we go through. But we made like, hey, here's what the ideal pipeline should look like. Let's build that template. And then that has really slowed down our ability to drive those out, because they're doing much deeper testing, instead of, we're going to do the base and then do these small incremental changes. So as much as I say use the agile approach, we kind of forgot that in ours. So those are kind of the key things I would say that we've learned over the last couple of years on this journey.
Yeah, definitely good to hear, and resonates as well with just what we hear.
I'll comment.
Yep. But I mean, trying to make a big change makes sense. It's a good lesson to learn. Yeah.
And not change everything at once is going to not help the adoption as well. So,
yeah, we were like, well, let's not change the build and the bake. Let's just change this deploy thing. And that was our mistake. But that's okay. It all worked out.
Excellent.
Glad to hear. So yeah, with that, I think we want to thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
You bet. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Love to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, glad to have you. So then with that, just thanks everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you next week in our 100th episode. So until then.
Yeah, congrats on that too. That's awesome. 100 episodes. It's a big deal.
Very, very pleased to have reached that point. So, all good. So then, thanks, and see you soon. Cheers.
Thanks. See ya.